last couple of years. So it means the world to me that I can work with them on this platform to talk to you about something super exciting that you can tap into as a business owner. And like Shannon said, my name is Hannah. My copywriting agency is Boundless Copy. I've been a copywriter for almost a decade now, and I've worked with all kinds of brands and businesses, helping them figure out what makes them unique and how they can tap into that so they stand out in their crowded marketplace. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have some super helpful presentation things going on here. I'll get that going. All right. Perfect. So as Shannon said, today's webinar is called Standing Out in a Crowded Yoga Market. So we're going to work on defining your brand voice. And I'm super excited to be here and chat about this because it's like a quick and easy way we can start to effectively make ourselves stand out in a really saturated world. As you know, if you are a yoga instructor, if you've been doing it for years or you're just getting into it, it's a beautiful thing that the yoga market is saturated, but it's also a challenging thing because what's going to have one student choose you over another equally as qualified yoga instructor? And tapping into your brand voice, how you market yourself, how you talk to your people, that's how you set the tone, explain to them what makes you different, and how you find your dream students, hit them in the feels, and then inspire them to take action. All right, so let's dive in. I know that I already had a little introduction. If you're like me, I'm really, really interested in knowing who I'm learning from before I actually take what they have to say to heart. So I want to give you just a touch of background on me. I have been running Boundless Copy for the last 8 years. I'm the founder, I'm the head copy gal. That's how I'll always refer to myself. But if you are new to the idea of copy, or if the word copywriting is confusing or like funky, don't sweat it. Copy just means words. So it's the words on your website, the words on your Instagram, the words in your emails. I am a word pro and I help business owners like you figure out how to make those words click with their people so that they hear them loud and clear and then come running. And as a copywriter, like Shannon said, I've worked with a ton of different businesses, lots of small businesses, mid-sized businesses, but even some big enterprises like Hot Topic, 1-800-Flowers, Amazon, Adobe. Every business, no matter how big or small, needs to be connected with their brand voice because that's how they connect with their dream people. And just like lots of yoga instructors like you all, you probably have specializations within the world of yoga, whether it's the type of yoga you teach, the type of student you're looking for. As a copywriter, I have a specialization as well, and that is brand voice. So brand voice is how you speak to the world around you. And my specialization is helping you tap into what makes you super unique, what helps sets you apart, and what helps you communicate with all of those people out there to find your dream students that you actually want in your classes. Like you as well, yes, I'm a copywriter, but I am a business owner. You are a business owner too. Even if you've been doing this for 10 years, 20 years, 10 seconds, if you are teaching yoga, you're a business owner. And part of being a business owner for me is having the freedom to run around the country and travel with my husband and my Springer Spaniel Chowder. We do that about half the year. I'm an avid adventurer. I've been a yoga student myself for years, but primarily what I want you to take away from this intro about me, I'm here to help instructors like you flip on the neon welcome sign for your dream students through the magic of your words. Like I said, I want your people to hear you loud and clear in this saturated market so they come running. A few key takeaways that I want you to kind of walk through with this webinar. I'm going to come at you with a lot of information. If you walk away with these 4 things, I have done my job. So number 1, like I said, you are a business owner. You're a brand. Yes, you're a yoga teacher, but you are responsible for the business that you run. And that means you are in charge of your marketing, how you talk to your students, how you attract those students. So having that mindset shift before we go into this is going to be really helpful because I want you to remember, yeah, I am a yoga teacher, but I'm a brand, I'm a business. All of this applies to me. Number 2, I want to give you some Brand Voice 101 specifically for yoga teachers. So I want you to get really clear on what your brand voice is, the very basics of it, and then start to kind of put the pieces together on what yours specifically sounds like. And we will definitely get into that. Thirdly, I would love if you stepped away from this with a really hot take on how powerful embracing your unique brand voice really is, especially when it comes to booking out the classes that you have, getting students in your classes, because your voice and how you talk to people, whether in person or in the digital landscape, is what connects you to your dream students. And then finally, I want you to take away very clear steps that you can put into action right now without hiring a copywriter, without spending money on anything. I just want you to have these clear steps for how you can start tapping into the magic of your very own brand voice, so that anytime you're writing something, whether you're trying to like type up an Instagram caption or send out an email to your list or update your website, anything, you can tap into this brand voice, start being consistent with it so that you can really connect with your people, inspire them to take action with you, and hit them right in the feels. So let's dive in. Okay, we talked about that 101. So we're going to do a little yoga teacher brand voice 101 to give you the basics that you need to succeed here. So brand voice is one of those things that like we kind of get on an abstract level. Like if I talk about brand voice to you, conceptually, it's going to make sense. It's just the way that you present yourself to the world, the way people hear you, how they feel when you talk to them. But there's a difference between conceptual and contextual. So we're going to get into that a little bit, because context, if we don't know what we're doing, can be a little bit challenging. And I think the best way to dive into this is to have a definition we can all roll with. So let's start with this one. The Boundless definition of brand voice is the consistent and curated personality, vibe, and attitude that your brand takes on when presenting itself to the world. It is the perfect little fusion of who you already are and who your dream students need you to be. And we're going to dive into that later. That one's really fun. But brand voice is how we communicate with the world around us. It's, yes, our spoken words when we're face to face with our students, but it's also the digital way that we interact with the universe, saying like, hey, this is who I am, this is who my brand is, and that's how you get people's attention. And I love to explain brand voice like this. Imagine that the yoga market is this like crowded, chaotic, dark highway. Maybe it's even like Route 66. We've got like all kinds of noise happening. We've got like tumbleweeds blowing. It is chaos. And your dream students are traveling along that highway looking for a place to pull in and stop for the night. It is hectic. It's hectic as heck out there, and you want them to see you. How do you do that when it's dark and crazy? That's the digital landscape. It's chaos. How can anyone know who to look for? Your brand voice is that neon welcome sign. As soon as you flip on that neon welcome sign, it's like, wait a second, I can see you through the noise. I can see you through the chaos, and I know you have room for me. I know you have vacancy. So that is like how we get our people to stop, pay attention to us. It's how we talk to them. It's how we sound and how consistently we do that. So using your brand voice isn't as hard as you think, or even as hard as we sometimes make it. So a great example of this is to like think on a yoga brand, a yoga business, a yoga influencer, someone on Instagram or TikTok that has made a really memorable impact on you, their brand as a whole. And it's likely it's not just because of their like color palette or their logo. That can be part of it too, but it's probably because you can recognize them anywhere you interact with them. If they have a reel on Instagram, if they send an email on an email list, that's their brand voice. And that's the thing that makes them stick out. So when you start to develop that for yourself, you can have that. You can have that piece where you're recognizable anytime someone interacts with you. And the wild thing about brand voice, like I said, is that it's very simple in concept. But you know, and I know that if you've ever sat down to write an email to your list or write an Instagram caption that is going to like make people stop their scroll, knowing how to say something is a lot harder than we think. So we need to be able to bring the energy that you're bringing face to face with your students into the digital world. So this is especially true in your world because Yeah, the yoga market is saturated and crowded, and it's important to stand out. So you need to be able to show up, stand out, and stick with your people so they're not still traveling along Route 66 hoping to find you. So, a couple of things your brand voice should be: clear, bold, consistent, and sticky. And Boundless has a very specific view on clear and sticky brand voice, and I kind of want to explain that to you. So, from a clear perspective, think about it this way. If you are coming at your brand voice from a confused and kind of muddy place, that's exactly how people are going to perceive it. So if I ask you, what does your brand voice sound like? Or how do you sound to your people? And you can't tell me, how are they going to be expected to know how you sound, to recognize you everywhere you are? So being clear is really important. Having a bold brand voice is also super important. And bold doesn't mean being the loudest person in the room or the wildest person in the party. Bold means embracing your voice exactly as it is. That's the boldest brand voice you can have, is when you're not trying to emulate somebody else. Consistency is a huge part of brand voice too. So you need to be consistent with your voice. And it's important to remember, if you do all of this brand voice work to make sure that you're standing out and you're recognizable and you're sticky, it doesn't matter if you're not consistent. So it doesn't count if you're not using it, essentially. So the more that you show up in the same way, that you're consistent with your voice and the way you say things, the more people are going to sit there and be like, hey, I recognize that brand. I recognize that yoga teacher. And that's what gets people in your classes. And finally, the pinnacle of Boundless brand voice philosophy is that your voice should be sticky. Your voice should make your audience do like a double take, a U-turn, so that they hear you once and then never forget you. And that's the way you say something, the goofy phrases you use, your humor, your sass, your spunk, your vibe, your personality. That's the sticky part of your brand voice. And that's why it's so important to tap into that. So how does getting really clear and consistent with our own unique voice help us fill our yoga classes with the students that we actually want there, our dream students? Brand voice is a few different things for us. It makes you memorable. So like I said, at Boundless, we call this being sticky. And this is what makes you stand out and stick in the brains of your audience. And the key to stickiness is consistency. So people can hear you wherever you are: Instagram, TikTok, website, emails, and they'll know that across those platforms, they can hear the same things, hear the same voice, and know who you are and click with you. And brand voice also keeps you very top of mind, because the next time a potential student says to themselves, I would love to add 2 to 3 weekly classes to my schedule, and I don't really know who to choose from, it's highly likely they're going to remember how you sound, how you made them feel, how you talk to them, instead of like an Instagram graphic of your class schedule. Our brains, funnily enough, are designed to like connect with people more so than they are to remember facts. So if you can focus on how you sound, how you connect with your people, how you talk to them, you're going to be top of mind more often. Thirdly, your brand voice reaches the right people the right way. Remember how I talked about that neon welcome sign? That's exactly what I mean here again. So your brand voice is going to be the thing that signals to your dream person, hey, I'm here, I'm for you, and I've got a spot waiting for you. It also inspires your people to book with you. If they connect with your voice and they say, hey, I found my person, I think I really like this yoga instructor, they're far more likely to trust you and book with you. There's this principle in copywriting and sales psychology called liking, which is exactly as it sounds. But basically what it means is that people are more inclined to buy from people that they like, that they trust, that they connect with, that they would get a beer with, that they would ally with on Survivor. The more they like you, the more likely they are going to book with you and connect with you. It also gives you the competitive edge. And I think it's really important to point this out too. Your brand voice is a green light, but it's not a green light for every single person out there. Your brand voice gets to be the thing that helps you distinguish who you are and who you're for. You know better than anyone. There are students that maybe wouldn't benefit from your class. Maybe there are students that you don't really want to teach. You have a dream student in your mind. your brand voice is the green light for those students and the red light for the ones that maybe aren't the best fit for you. So brand voice is a really powerful thing, and it does all of this stuff for you. How can we start using our voices consistently to stand out in the online world and flip on that sign? So we get there by, number one, tapping into our own clear and sticky brand voices. And that means showing up confidently and consistently at every turn. That also means getting really, really clear on our own brand voice, putting everything we learn about ourselves into a single place so we can tap back into that over and over again. And I have 3 steps that I tell all of my clients to use when they're starting to really dig into this whole brand voice thing. Number 1, go digging. Number 2, start listening. And number 3, refresh and refine. And we're going to walk through each of those steps together, starting with go digging. So this is the first step of digging into that brand voice. And before we can put our voice out there into the world, start talking in it confidently, we have to understand what it is, how it sounds. And that's what this whole go digging process is about. It's what I call brand voice discovery. And I think it's important to really harp on the fact that it is a discovery. We are not creating your brand voice out of thin air. Like I said, your brand voice is a fusion of who you already are and who your people need you to be. So we're not crafting an avatar or creating some kind of thing. Your brand voice is you. We're not starting from scratch. So we just go digging to figure out what your brand voice sounds like, how it makes you memorable, how it makes you different, and how you can use it to connect with your people. So the brand voice discovery process, the first thing you want to do is to start asking and answering all of these big, exciting questions, because brand voice is like how you sound. It's your personality, your vibe, the way you show up, your energy, but it's also your foundation. So you can't just show up and vibe. You have to know what that's based off of, right? And that's really important foundational work. So your brand voice is your mission, what your brand is built on. It's what sets you apart, your differentiators. It's your origin story, what got you here. And it's how your people feel when they hear you. And we need to get really clear on these things as a first step, because like I mentioned earlier, if we don't have the answers to this, if we can't answer these questions about our foundation, we're coming at that from a really muddy, unclear place. We cannot expect our people to translate this, have that vibe, have that feeling if we're muddy in the first place. So people won't recognize what you stand for. They won't connect the memorable dots. They won't recognize your voice if that's not clear. The clearer you get, the clearer your audience receives your message, and the easier it is to be consistent. So when we talk about asking and answering big, exciting questions, all this really good foundational work, we're talking about questions like, how do I want my dream students to feel when they interact with me? And because brand voice is that fusion, you need to think hard about who your dream students want to interact with, how they want to feel when they do, and what you want to inspire them to do and experience and feel beyond just booking a class with you. How do you want them to feel every time they step into a class? Confident, like they can do anything they set their mind to, at ease because you know what you're teaching them is going to give them the tools to go inward and relax. Think hard about what you want to inspire them to feel and do and think anytime they interact with you. Another great question is, what makes me different from every other yoga instructor out there? And I won't lie to you, this kind of question is really hard because we actually are our own worst critics. So it's really tough for us to think about what differentiates us. But when we get down to the root of it, with how we make our people feel, how we do things differently, maybe what our practice, how our practice differs, all these little pieces of what makes us unique, that all goes into your brand voice. And that's something that you need to have a clear understanding of before you can take this a step further. So I highly encourage these big, exciting questions. Ask, answer them, do a little bit of that groundwork, even if it makes your brain flex a little bit. Another really awesome thing that you can do for this go digging process is to do something that I call the tone keyword Venn diagram. So you remember, again, and I'll repeat it over and over, that's part of brand voice. Brand voice is that fusion of who you already are and who your dream people need you to be. What lies in the middle of that fusion, is the overlap. And because your brand voice is how you sound, how you talk to your people, that overlap is where we find those tone keywords that tell us how we speak to our people. And these keywords are guides for us when we write so that we can know like what vibe to bring when we show up every time we show up. So Instagram, emails, websites, anywhere you're writing anything. And think about it. Typically, when people talk about how a brand or a business interacts with them, they're talking about how they sound, right? They're like, oh, did you see that brand's ad? They were so funny. Or did you see that Instagram caption? Like, they were really knowledgeable or energetic or calming. That's how we describe brands. So you need to know how to describe your brand, and this exercise can help you do that. So these tone keywords are callbacks that remind you how you want your brand voice and your words to feel and sound when your dream people hear you. Let's see. So how do we come up with these tone keywords? Because I don't want you, again, to just like create them out of thin air. They need to come from somewhere. So we go looking for that overlap. And whether you have pieced this together or not, there's a ton of overlap between who you already are as a person and who your dream people need you to be as a yoga instructor or a business. When you hit that sweet spot, that's when your people start paying attention, connecting with you, remembering you, trusting you, and even buying into you, booking your classes, showing up at your classes, or downloading your resources. And here's how you can start doing this overlap for yourself. So first step, draw a Venn diagram, do it in Canva, do whatever you need to do. On one side, I want you to write who I already am, who my dream people need me to be. Step two, I want you to start thinking really hard about who you are naturally. You don't even have to have your brand as part of this for the moment. I want you to think about you as a person. What's your personality like? What do you sound like? How do you talk to people? What is like the you-ness of you, if you will? Write all of this down, do a little of that foundational work, and put that on your who I already am side. And then take it over to your who my people need me to be side. Think really hard about this from your dream student's perspective. Think about their experiences, think about their pain points, think about what they struggle with, what their desires are. What do they need out of someone like you? Do they need somebody who's really empathetic, who's really great with beginners, who can challenge them or encourage them? Think about it from a feeling perspective. What is your dream student, if you could picture them, need from someone like you? And then you're going to write that in your who your dream people need you to be section. And then I want you to look at both sides. Do you see that overlap? Do you see where their needs and who you are kind of come to this beautiful little overlap? There's like this meshing that happens, even if it's not word for word, where you can start to piece these things together. And that intersection, that overlap of how you talk to your people and who you already are, those are where your tone keywords come into play. So maybe it is energetic, maybe it is empathetic, maybe it's sassy or sarcastic. All of those things are going to happen in the overlap. Once you start tapping into the magic behind that foundation, that's when you can bring that overlap to life. So to do this, you need to start listening, paying attention to your personality, and incorporating some of your go-to words, your phrases, your taglines, your isms, the themes of you and your brand, and you bring that into your brand voice. So this is really important to think about here too, because if you're out there thinking, oh, I don't say anything special, or there's nothing memorable about how I talk, or man, I just like, how could I possibly stand out? My brand voice is so boring. You're wrong. And I'm not usually so black and white with that kind of stuff, but it's true, because think about it. We all talk differently. We all have this like unique flavor we bring to the table. We all have things that we say regularly or consistently that make us stand out and make us memorable and make us who we are. Sometimes we're just way too close to it. So before I dive into the next piece of advice here, I encourage and implore you to chat with the people who love you. Maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's someone at your yoga studio. Talk to the people who love and know you and ask them, like, what do I say regularly? What are some of my words, my phrases? Like, how am I goofy? Talk to them, because I guarantee you they will know. Which leads us into The easiest and best thing you can do to start paying attention to your personality. So, this exercise is something I do with all of my clients. I do this for myself constantly, and it's simple and it works. So, this is something called the Brand Voice Dictionary. And this is like a very raw and data driven thing that you're going to keep on you in your phone, wherever you keep notes about your business. And the best part about it is that it's not refined, it's not perfect, and it's super easy. So, first, I want you to go into your phone, open up your notes app, and then open a new note, title it like your business name, brand dictionary. So whatever your brand name is, brand dictionary. This brand dictionary is going to be your cheat sheet. It is like the go-to that you can open up every single time you have to write something in your brand voice. And you'll have all of these words and phrases and things there. So it's your living, breathing, always evolving tip sheet for what your brand says, does, or thinks. It's not fancy, it's not buttoned up, it's raw data, and you can evolve it as time goes on. But this one here that I have on the side is mine. And this is like 3 scans of it. I think I have like 10 scrolls. I've been in business a long time though. It's chaotic and it doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see, like it's nothing special, but it is what I open up every time I need to write an Instagram caption or every time I need to update a bio. All chaos, all good stuff, but it's all the phrases, words, themes, isms that Boundless says regularly. So to do this for yourself, start paying attention to what you say. Maybe record yourself talking to a student you feel really comfortable around, or take a peek at your emails or your Instagram. Wherever you feel yourself naturally being you, that's when I want you to start paying attention. And spoiler alert, just doing this, just writing this note down in your phone is going to be enough to trick your brain into paying attention when you talk. If you do this, I guarantee you for the next week, you're going to like clue in on things that you're saying and doing, your little phrases, your little themes, and it's going to start becoming easier and easier. Getting really familiar with your brand's personality and putting those key things in place that you can refer back to over and over, it's going to help you so much next time you sit down, like behind your laptop or behind your phone, and you know what you want to say, but you have no idea how to say it. This is your secret for how to say it. So let's look at just one of mine as an example so you can kind of understand how this whole thing works. I mean, as you can see down here, I have things like red hot go. I say that all the time. Flip on the neon welcome sign. You've heard that like 80 times already today. Head copy gal is how I talk about myself. But then we have at the top of the second one, hey pal. And hey pal is something that I use every time I'm greeting someone, online, in person. And it's on this list for 2 reasons. When I went through my own brand voice discovery process, and I asked and answers those big, exciting questions that we were talking about, I realized that my dream clients are usually the people who have never worked with a copywriter before. So they're intimidated and they're feeling kind of overwhelmed and they feel like they don't know what they're doing. So how they need to feel and what I want to inspire in them is relief and like someone who's approachable and a buddy, a pal. I don't want them to feel intimidated. And they need to know they have a friend in this process. So that's basically what my dream people like diagram there tells me about them. That's something I know they need from me. Hey pal is that embodiment. And then number 2, that's just me. This comes from paying attention to me. This is how I greet my loved ones. This is how I greet my friends. When we start paying attention, we can find that overlap of the things that we already say and the things that could be helpful for our audience to hear. And I got here by doing the exact same process that I'm telling you. So it might seem small, it might seem silly, but these kind of things can do so much heavy lifting for you and your brand next time you sit down to write anything. Okay, you've asked and you've answered those big, exciting questions. You have started tapping into the vibe a little bit more. We've talked about your personality a bit. So the third step is to take everything you've learned about yourself, about your brand, about your people, and then you refresh and refine it. Again, remember when I mentioned brand voice is that fusion of who you already are and who your dream people need you to be. And that means that your voice does need to be authentic, but it needs to be you, your authentic voice at your absolute best. And that's why we refresh and refine everything we've learned. The way that I explain this balance to my clients is by saying that, like, yes, brand voice is about being who you already are, but with a plot twist. It's your authentic self on your A plus game. It's you doing the absolute most at the absolute best. And you're dishing out your authenticity at every touch point so that whenever your audience interacts with you, they're sitting there thinking, dang, this yoga instructor, this is the one for me. I like them, I connect with them, I get them, and they are like functioning at like their top speed. So how do we refine? How do we take everything we've learned and then refine and refresh it to the point where we are our authentic selves at our absolute best? There are three things that we can do. Number one, we are going to create a go-to guide. I talk about a brand voice guide like it is my full-time job, and I guess it is, but we need a plan that we can use over and over. A brand voice guide is the key to creating that bold brand voice that you have and then making it really consistent, because it's so hard to do all of this foundational work. And then if we don't put it anywhere that we can access, that we can use, like a template or a guide, what was all of that for? It's really hard to sit there in front of your laptop or your phone and say, okay, how did I say this the other day? Because that was really good. And then we have to go digging for it. Or how am I different from other yoga instructors again? And then we have to go looking for it. Imagine the ease of having it all in one place so that anytime you need to write something, anytime you need to write a caption, something for your website, you have it all right there. And it's kind of the same thing as a Pinterest board. And I'm sure everybody has had some kind of mood board, dream board, Pinterest board. You set it all up so it's all in one place. And then you go back to it every time to channel the vibe, to make sure everything makes sense for that vibe, right? A brand voice guide is the same thing. It's like a mood board for your words. And this is what you refer back to at all times to ensure that the best version of you is being added to like whatever you're writing. Number two, we create a guide, but also we remember who we're talking to. So all of that information about your brand voice is super helpful, but not if we're not putting it through the lens of who our dream people are. So when you answer those big, exciting questions that we talked about, along the way, you start figuring out who your dream students really are. And once you piece that together, you can even take it a step further, because let's say we have our dream students in this like big, vast category, and then we want to write something to them. That's really hard. It's hard to think about our dream students in this like vague expanse on the internet. When we can narrow it down and bring in all of the elements of our dream people into one person, we can create this kind of demographic of our dream students and we can talk to them. So I challenge you, as part of your refining process, to think about who your dream students are and then turn them into one person. And what I always tell my clients is, give them a name, download a Canva photo, like a stock photo, and slap it next to them. That's who you want to write to. It's so much easier to talk to Jessie, your dream student, that you have a picture of, that you have all of this interesting information about who they really are, what they think, what they're into, what they're looking for. Anytime you're writing, talk to that person. Don't talk to this big question mark of dream student. And then thirdly, say what you mean first and then edit. I know as people, we have this like really strong urge to be perfectionists. Every time we sit down to write, we want to write it perfect on the first go. And if we can't do that, we sit there stalled and we like just stare and we don't know what to do. And then you look up and an hour's gone by and the Instagram caption you wanted to write still hasn't happened. My best trick for refining and refreshing your voice when you're writing, say what you mean first and then go backward. So sit down, no holds barred. Tell me what you want to say. What is the what behind you want to say? Say it bluntly, say it matter-of-factly. If you're writing a bio about yourself and you don't know like how the heck to infuse your brand voice in it, first things first, don't even try. Just write that bio. Make it boring as heck. Say something like, here, I'll use mine as an example. My really boring bio. This is the what I want to get across. I'm Hannah. I am a copywriter and I write words for brands that help them sell to their clients. All of that is true. All of that is exactly what I want to express to people. Here's the problem. That doesn't sound like me, and none of my brand voice is in there. So if someone sees this on the internet, there's nothing about this that's going to make me stand out and stick, right? So I write the what, I do that first, and then I go back to my brand voice guide. I go back to my brand voice dictionary, and I add in all of those things that make me me. I say, hey, pal, I'm Hannah, a copywriter who helps brands flip on the neon welcome sign for their dream people. Those things, they express the exact same thought, but one of them says it so much clearer in my voice, and you're definitely going to remember one over the other, right? So those three things are going to help you refine and refresh your brand voice after we've gone through those other steps. All right, let's recap a little bit, because like I said, if you haven't walked away with these things, perhaps I have failed. But here's what I want you to remember about it all. Brand voice is the fusion of who you are and who your audience needs you to be. I know you've got that one down. I have talked about it a lot. It is a blend, a delicious mix, and the overlap of those two things is where the magic starts to happen. Number two, the clearer your brand voice, the better you'll connect with your dream students. So again, if you come at it from a muddy place, it's going to come off muddy. Number three, the first step to a bold brand voice is to go digging. Answer those big, exciting questions. Start with that foundation. And remember, we're digging, we're not creating from scratch, because your brand voice already exists. You just need to get in there and figure out what it is. The second step to a bold brand voice is paying attention to your personality. The things that make you you, the phrases, the themes, the isms, those are the things that bring your foundations to life. So you need to pay attention to who you are and start incorporating that in how you talk to your people. And then thirdly, to get a bold brand voice, you have to refine and refresh so that you are showing up consistently and confidently as the best version of you. Okay. It is my greatest hope that this has simplified brand voice, made it really easy, approachable, and fun. You already have a killer brand voice. You just need to figure out how to dig in and discover it. I hope that this was clear. I hope you're walking away with a few things you can do right now to start figuring out what your brand voice is and how you can tap into it. If you want to hang out, I am talking about brand voice almost all the time on my Instagram, on my threads. I'm not a TikTok girl, but my username is Boundless Copy. My website is boundlesscopy.com. And truly, if you want to get like all the exclusive good info, my email list, the Hey Pal Club, they always get it first. So I'm sure beYogi will send those links to you, but you can also join directly on my site. And then finally, I want to let you guys know, because you were on this webinar, which I so appreciate, you can use code beYogi for a 20% discount off your cart when you snag any resources from the Boundless Copy Shop. And that's running until the 26th. I'm probably going to extend that though, because I have some really good Black Friday deals where you can stack that discount. So check that out. You can also get 15% off any of my copywriting services from November 13th to December 13th. So just mention you were on the beYogi webinar when you inquire. But I am thrilled to death that you were here. I appreciate it so much. And if you have questions, I am ready to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. That
You
was
are so welcome.
amazing. We do have some questions that have came in. We have one from Sherry. Hi, Hannah. If you aren't a fan of social media like Facebook and Insta in general, I'm not. What other digital options are there for sharing your voice?
That is a great question. So I will let you know, I'm actually not a huge fan of social media either, but I did start getting into it this past year to kind of see how voice, was like developing, how we could use it. Your best way to do it if you're not into the socials is to develop an email list, because that's like a direct connection with your people. People can sign up at your classes, anywhere at your website, and that's like having the opportunity to talk directly to them. So email list is my number one recommendation. I would say your website, if you have a site, go back, comb through, figure out where you can add elements of your brand voice that make you stand out and pop.
Awesome. Not really a question, but an inquiry from Caroline. I'd love to see more examples of boring versus brand voice.
Yeah, I think the best thing that you can do, and Caroline, if you want, you can follow me on Instagram and DM me, and I can send you a couple of things. Um, Start looking at how boring versus brand voice is. When I say boring, I'm talking about our messaging, which is like the what you're saying, the very factual thing you want to get across. Brand voice is how you say it. So think about brand voice as like how you deliver that messaging in a fun and memorable way. But if you want to DM me on Instagram, I will happily send over some real life examples for you.
Awesome. We had a question from Sharon. She asked, what do your copywriting services entail exactly?
Oh, yeah, good question. I do brand voice and messaging strategy for lots of my clients. So we hop on calls and I'll come up with a brand voice guide, like we talked about, a messaging strategy. But I also write websites for all of my clients. I do blogging retainers for my clients. And then let's say you're launching a new offer, like a new service, or you have like a digital resource you want people to purchase. I also write the sales pages that help you do that.
Awesome. Question from Pauline. Can you talk about testing or measuring how phrases or keywords in your dictionary are resonating?
That is such a good question. I will say the quick and dirty way to do this is to poll your audiences on your socials. Just as a quick thing, if you're like, wait, that doesn't sound like a great move, sales psychology and like consumer psychology tells us that people actually love to be part of behind the scenes things. So if you really want honest feedback from your audience, a great way to do that is to share some of your words, share some of your phrases with your people, and ask them what they think about it. Another great thing to ask your people, if you're already regularly connecting with them, put a poll out, maybe in an email, maybe on an Instagram, and ask like, hey, do I have any recognizable phrases? How do they make you feel? You can be really blunt with your audience without it ever feeling icky, and people love to be part of that.
Awesome. And it looks like we have not really a question, but they ask, could you say more about a guide?
Absolutely. I would love to. So, a brand voice guide is, like I mentioned, this like mood board for your words that you can consistently return to so that anytime you're writing anything, you have this guide to walk you through it. And when I help clients put together their own brand voice guides, which I do as a one-on-one service, I also have a mini course called Brand Voice Roundup that walks you through how to create your own guide. We go through all of these big, exciting questions about who you are, who you're there to serve, what your like brand origin story is, and we take a feeling first like approach to how you want people to feel. And your brand voice guide is filled with things like those tone keywords, your perception promise, so how you want people to feel every time you interact with them. And it's essentially just a guideline that you can look at when you say, okay, I have this thing I want to communicate to my people. I know what I want to say. Now I need help in how to say it. And that guide is going to help you transform the what into something that's memorable and you every time.
Awesome. Looks like we have another question from Aria. How to make a voice dictionary?
Yeah. So the best way to make your brand voice dictionary is to do that, open up that notes, maybe on your phone, maybe on your laptop, and just start listening to yourself talk. And if you're talking to a friend and you say something that stands out, like for me, hey, pal, I'm going to write that down immediately. I don't need to do anything with it, but I open up my notes app. I'm like, hey, pal is a thing I say, and I leave it alone. And then I'm going to keep figuring out what I say consistently. What are some phrases that are unique that I don't really hear other people say, but I say them? For example, I grew up in Florida. I grew up in the South. I have a lot of Southernisms that I say. So a lot of those are written down in my brand voice dictionary. Think about the things that you say as slang or lingo or regional things. And if you're struggling, because we all kind of struggle to pay attention to ourselves, talk to the people who love you, who know you really well, and just ask them, like, what are some things I say that you remember? And I can guarantee you they're going to have a couple.
I love that. From Maria, how does your system coexist with AI avatar that can do most of those tasks?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually glad you asked because there's this like overlap and this kind of like funky talk about how like brand voice guidelines and AI can exist. So what's great about AI is a lot of copywriters are anti-AI. I am not. I think it's a great tool, super helpful. What a brand voice guide can do for you is to help you train your AI to sound like you even better. An AI can do so much for you. And if you're training a chatbot, a brand voice guideline where you've done a lot of that internal work is super helpful to ensure that that chatbot can write even better words for you.
Awesome. Question from Caroline. What are the biggest mistakes you see people making when it comes to brand voice?
That's such a good question, Caroline. Okay, this is the hill that I will die on happily. The biggest mistake is trying to emulate somebody else's voice because it's working really well. So I see people do this all the time, especially in industries that are super saturated. They see somebody else and they're like, wow, they're killing it. People really seem to click with them. They sell out all their classes. People are downloading their digital resources. They must be doing something right. And then we try to emulate that voice. The problem with that is it's not authentic and it doesn't work for you because it's not you. It's hard to tap into. You have to think about it constantly. And it just isn't genuine, and people can feel that. So the biggest mistake is trying super hard to sound like someone else when your voice is exactly who your dream people are looking for.
Awesome. And then we had a comment and a question from Lauren. This was awesome and so well done, Hannah. Is it
Thank
okay that
you.
I have more than one person I'm talking to?
Yeah. Okay. Such a good point. Absolutely. It is for a lot of people, we will have that one dream person. But no, you can have different avenues. For example, I have clients who I teach how to write in their own brand voice, and then I have copywriters that I teach how to do better copy, like so they can help their clients. It's okay if we have multiple audiences. The key is figuring out what makes them different. So if you have like two dream people, awesome. Make sure you've like done a demographic, like little avatar for each of them so that you know who you're talking to whenever you're writing.
Awesome. We have a comment. Outstanding. Thank you for your clear and inspirational message. You're amazing. Dr. Avakian? Avakian.
Wow, thank you. You can feed my ego anytime. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, if we do not have any other questions, I want to thank you again, Hannah, for being here and hosting with beYogi. For our audience, thank you so much for being here as well. We will be sending out the recording, which includes the slides, as well as other resources. That discount that Hannah mentioned will include her social handles, her website, all of those details that you can find easily in one email, which will be sent to you by tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I super appreciate it. Thank you to beYogi for having me. And like Shannon said, all of my info is going to be there. I am very pro slide into my DMs, send me an email. I'm very extroverted, so I'm here to be a pal. You can always chat with me.
Yeah, and if you have any questions at all for beYogi, you can always reach out to me directly. I'll include my email too. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. And thank you for tuning in to the beYogi webinar series. Bye, everyone.